Alright everyone, welcome back to Voodoo's Thoughts, my recap of E3 2011. We just finished discussing the Microsoft press conference. Now the next press conference to be held was Sony's. And to be honest with you, I was pretty impressed with Sony's press conference. I think they may have been the best press conference of E3. They did a lot of things well. I think they really put a lot of good things in people's heads who, like myself, are starting to get really down on Sony, especially after this whole fiasco. I think that they really reaffirmed in a lot of people's minds that the PlayStation still has a lot to offer and there's great stuff coming. So let's talk a little bit about their press conference. The first thing they have listed here, I'm gonna save till later. But they did have some things about the PS Move. Which, again, you know, I wasn't a huge fan of because I'm not going to be getting a PS Move. I don't want motion controls. I just don't. And, you know, unfortunately I think they did a little bit of what Microsoft did and focused too much on the Move aspects instead of the actual software. But I think they did it less of an extent than Microsoft did. But anyway, they announced a brand new IP called Ruin, which is, well, again, I'll save that for later. I'm sorry. Okay, let's talk about this first. The first thing that I'll talk about is BioShock Infinite, and it was pretty funny, I have to say, because BioShock Infinite, basically the announcement was it's gonna support Move now, and they had Ken Levine, who is, I don't know if he's, you know, he's a big wig with Irrational Games, who is behind BioShock Infinite. And he came out and he was like, listen, you know, because this guy is pretty much a loudmouth, and bottom line is, he had an interview and he basically slammed the PlayStation Move. He said it was stupid and, you know, it was awful and all this other stuff, and said it would never be in his games and things like that. Well, he comes out on stage and says, well, you know, you know, said a lot of bad things about the Move, blah, blah, blah. But then I was called by Sony afterwards, and they tried to win me over, and they sent me a Move. And after playing with it, we were like, oh, look at the possibilities that the Move has, blah, blah, blah. My question to Ken Levine is, how did you not know the capabilities of the Move? Because the Wii's been out for 4 years, and it's the same exact thing. So that was a little strange. What I think happened was Sony called him and said, listen buddy, we want Move in BioShock Infinite. How big of a check do we have to write for that to happen? And that's exactly what happened, because I'm not buying, I'm not buying that the same exact concept as the Wii, because that's what the Move is. You can accept it or you can deny it. It doesn't make a difference. Move is PlayStation's version of Wii. It's the same stuff. I don't believe that he would stand there and slam the Move, which basically that technology's been out for, you know, like 4 years now with the Wii, and then all of a sudden get a call from Sony, have them send him a Move, him play. I don't know what he played with it because there's not hardly anything out there for Move. Have him play with it, and all of a sudden the light comes on and he goes, oh, this is great, you know, this is amazing, we're going to put it in BioShock Infinite. I don't think that's how it happened. Now, maybe it did, and I'm just wrong, but, you know, like I said, Move, that technology is not new. It's been out with the Wii for years, so Ken Levine knew what the Move was, he knew what the technology was, and I think what happened is Sony, you know, made a little deal with Ken Levine and Irrational Games to put Move in their game. Said, listen, you know, you go on stage, kind of retract what you said about us, find a way to put Move in the game, and, you know, we'll cut you a deal. So I think that's what happened. Maybe I was wrong, but that's what it seemed like to me. So BioShock Infinite's going to include Move, but again, okay, they really didn't show how. There was no gameplay demo, nothing like that. He just said it's going to include Move, and there's a lot of possibilities, and that was it. So that was kind of a waste of time. There was CCP, who was behind EVE Online, came out and said that Dust 514 which is a new upcoming game, is PlayStation 3 exclusive. And they demoed the game. It looks pretty cool, actually. It somehow hooks into EVE Online and things. I don't really know how. I don't have EVE Online or any of that stuff, so it was a little confusing. You know, it's like, to me, because I just don't understand if this game is a game that, you know, you can play alone, if it has like a campaign and stuff, or if it has to work with EVE Online. I think it's its own game, and if it is, I'll probably check it out because it looked pretty cool. But anyway, it's a PS3 exclusive, and that was pretty cool. I should probably actually tell you what they started with, okay? Because that might be good. Unlike Microsoft, who started out with 2 third-party games, Sony started with 2 exclusive games, okay? The first one that they did was Uncharted 3. And obviously that's the game coming out this year that everyone wants for the PS3, including myself. I can't wait for Uncharted 3. That's what they started with. And they had a gameplay demo of Uncharted 3. And the game looks incredible. It looks like, you know, what every Uncharted fan's going to recognize. The graphics are stunning. And the gameplay looks really good. So that was impressive. A good way to start the press conference. And they also had, you know, when the press conference had his epic video montage of all these great PlayStation exclusive things and everything. It was cool. And then they went right into Uncharted 3. Then they followed that with Resistance 3, which is probably second in line as the big PlayStation blockbuster this year. Which started off with 2 strong console exclusives, unlike Microsoft, who starts off with 2 third-party games. One obviously is huge in Modern Warfare 3. The other is Tomb Raider, which no one cares. But anyway, so they started off the conference right. That brings me into the next bullet point, which was Resistance 3. They showed gameplay of Resistance 3. It looks really good. I wish the gameplay demo was longer. It was pretty short. It looks completely revamped. They've got some great new guns in there. It looks like it looks really cool. And they announced a couple of packages with Resistance 3. The first thing they offered was, because Sony right now is trying to do everything they can do to sell the Move because it ain't selling. They're packaging Resistance 3 with the PlayStation Move and the Sharpshooter, and it's all going to be bundled together, just like SOCOM 4 was, and it's going to be $150, which honestly is not a bad deal when you think about it. You get the Move, the Sharpshooter, and the game Resistance 3, all for $150, when the Move by itself, I believe, is $150. So that's a pretty sweet deal. If you're interested in getting the Move, then I would jump on that because you're going to be saving a shitload of money. Me, on the other hand, I'm not interested in the PlayStation Move. I have a Wii downstairs collecting dust. I don't want to play Resistance with the Move and a Sharpshooter. I want to play it with my gamepad. But if you want to jump on the Move and you want this opportunity, I would do it because you're going to be saving tons of money with that package, okay? The other thing that they showcased is actually neat. It was cool, but the price tag is way too high, alright? Way too high. What it was is it is a 24-inch 3D screen, a 3D monitor, and it's a bundle. You get the 3D, the 24-inch, which is a decent size. You know, it's not huge, but it's a pretty decent size. 24-inch 3D screen with a pair of glasses, an HDMI cable, because obviously it's also HD, and the game Resistance 3, all for $500. Now, that is really expensive. $500, in my opinion, is too much. If it was like $400, we would be talking, but $500 is way too pricey. But what they showed with it, which was actually really neat, is that it does in fact revolutionize co-op gameplay, because as everyone's used to when you're playing local co-op, it's a split screen. So you might have a big screen, but you're only seeing half of it. With this TV, or this monitor, each person can put on a pair of glasses, and instead of each person only seeing half a screen, each player gets a full screen image, but it's different. It's in each person's perspective, but it's full screen, all on one monitor. How that happens, I have no idea. I don't understand the eye tricks and things that they use and all with 3D, but it's pretty sweet. You can have one monitor, and instead of, you can play local co-op with each person getting a completely different full screen 3D image. Is really sweet. I don't know how they do it, like I said, but it's cool. But the price tag for me is way too high. $500 is just, it's too much money. But it was an interesting bundle. Okay. They introduced a new Sly Cooper, which is big news for old-time Sony fans. Obviously, Sly Cooper is a PlayStation exclusive platforming game, and they're coming out with a new one, Sly Cooper Thieves in Time, in 2012. So that's a big announcement for that. Something else they announced, which was pretty sweet, was the God of War Origins collection, which is the 2 games for the PSP from God of War, which was Chains of Olympus, and what was the other one for God of War? Chains of Olympus and something else. I forgot the name of the other one, but they're combining the 2 PSP games for God of War and releasing them as a collection for the PS3, and that is pretty cool because I've heard that those games were really good. I never had a PSP, but I heard they were good games. So that was a pretty cool announcement, and I think a lot of people are excited. That's something that I may check out, you know, because it's just a cool idea that they had, that they took their most successful PSP titles, bundled them, and are going to now put them on the home console, the PS3. So that's cool. And oh yeah, Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, that collection was also announced, and they're both going to be coming out. God of War Origins and Ico Shadow of the Colossus both coming out in September of this year. So also they made an announcement that the PS3 will receive media from Cinema Now, and it's a service that is similar to Netflix, which I don't understand why they're doing that because they already have Netflix, so why get another provider just like Netflix? Doesn't make any sense, but whatever. Now let's get to the big announcement, the real true focus of Sony in this press conference, which was their new NGP PlayStation Portable, their newest PSP, and they officially named it the PlayStation Vita, which in my opinion is one of the stupidest names I've ever heard, but this was an E3 full of stupid names, as you'll see with the Nintendo press conference. But PlayStation Vita was announced, and there's going to be 2 models of it. The pricing of this is actually decent, okay? There's going to be a Wi-Fi only and a Wi-Fi 3G model. The Wi-Fi only is going to be $250, the Wi-Fi 3G is going to be $300. What was funny about this is that they announced, okay, that the official carrier for the 3G for the Vita is going to be AT&T, and when they announced that, the entire arena, like, booed. It was pretty funny. Like, Kazuo Hirai was actually doing the conference, and when he announced that, everyone was like, what the hell? Why in the world would you choose AT&T? And everybody was like groaning and moaning, and Kazuo Hirai's like he didn't know what to do. He's like, okay then, let's move on, because he was not anticipating that reaction. He should have anticipated it because it's stupid, because AT&T is awful, you know, but they chose to go that route, and that's their own fault. But anyway, talking about the Vita, it's a pretty neat thing, okay? It's got a full LED touchscreen as its screen, alright? It's fully touch capable. You've also got dual analog sticks, which is awesome. Of course, your D-pad and your buttons and your triggers. It's also 6-axis compatible, meaning that you can lean and tilt the actual device, the Vita, and it has 6-axis functionality. It also has the complete back of the Vita is a touch sensor, so you can actually run your fingers along the back of the device, and it's another touchpad. So it was pretty sweet. And the pricing is pretty good for this, considering that the 3DS is also $250 and doesn't have nearly the hardware capabilities, you know, that the Vita is going to have. So that was pretty pretty impressive. And they did really do a good job, I thought, of having a bunch of good games announced for this thing. And they demoed a few of them. The first they demoed was, of course, their Uncharted game, Golden Abyss, and it looked really good. The graphics looked really good on it, and they did a good job of showcasing the features of the Vita, the touchscreen capabilities, the 6-axis capabilities, you know, all you could use to help Drake in his platforming. You know, and you had options. You could use the traditional controls for Drake, or you can do what they called something like finger painting or something like that, where you would drag your finger across the ledges and stuff that you wanted Drake to follow. It would highlight it, and Drake would go that route, and it was really neat, and it was a good game that they showcased on the Vita. They also showed Mod Nation Racers for the Vita, which is a completely different game than the Mod Nation Racers for PS3, which was a huge racing game, and they demoed the create your own level, and it was really neat. The guy up there was, you know, doing touchscreen and stuff to just draw the track on the screen. He was, you know, modding it with like jumps and banks and stuff in the course. He would pick something like trees, and he would draw, you know, trace his finger across the screen, and trees would pop up where his finger was. Houses, the same thing. And then it was cool. He used the back touch sensor to make the terrain, which was sweet. And then did a demo and showed them racing the course he just created. So that was a cool demo. They also had some other announcements, such as Little Big Planet, which would be coming to the PS Vita, which is big. And also, when Ken Levine did his announcement about Move being with BioShock Infinite, he also stated that there will be a BioShock title coming out for the Vita, which is big. So, all in all, the Vita was a pretty big success, considering that a lot of people feel the PSP wasn't very good. Now they're releasing an overhaul on this thing with crazy touch capabilities, a great screen, great graphics, 6-axis, and all that stuff. But what's even more impressive about it is A, it's reasonably priced, okay, and B, they've got really good titles coming for the system. It's not a bunch of, you know, garbage coming to the system. They've got some pretty good titles, and, you know, developers signed on with this Vita. So that was pretty cool. Another one that they demoed was this game Ruin, which I mentioned, which is an action RPG, and it was interesting because they demoed it, and we're talking about how, like, you can develop rivals through PlayStation Network on, like, different social networking sites you can hook this thing up to, and it's like it's a real-time game where people can actually attack their rivals' layers and things, and based on how powerful their rival is, their layer will be more complex, more difficult to navigate, and it's all in real time. So if I'm going to attack my rival's layer, and I turn on my PlayStation Vita and start doing it, he may get a message or notification on something, hey, your layer is being attacked. He can pick up his Vita in real time and try to ward me off or fight me off and things like that. So that was a pretty neat demo as well for Ruin. So honestly, the Vita was a pretty big success for Sony at their press conference. I was impressed with the way that they handled the whole debacle with the PSN, because you knew that was going to come up. They didn't really spend a whole lot of time on it, which I liked. They started the press conference. Guy came out and he said, "Listen, you know, we understand that, you know, this has happened. We also understand that, you know, we messed up, that a lot of people, our third-party developers are upset, and our consumers are upset, and, you know, I thought he handled it very well. He said, listen, we understand all this, we're sorry, and, you know, To our third-party developers, thank you for sticking with us. To our retailers, thank you for sticking with us. And to the fans, thank you for putting up with us and sticking through it. And he basically said, listen, we understand that this has caused some people to move away from the Sony brand, to buy some, referring to people going out and buying Xboxes. And, people have lost trust in the Sony name. And he said, but, over the course of this next 90 minutes, what we hope to do is, reaffirm in you that Sony is still a great name in video gaming, and we've got all sorts of great stuff coming. And, in the next 90 minutes, we hope that your confidence in us will be restored, and you'll get excited about the PlayStation 3. And then they launched right into the press conference, and it was very strong. And I thought it was very nicely done, very professionally handled. They didn't spend a whole lot of time groveling, saying, oh, please forgive us. No, they said, listen, we understand the situation, but we hope that you will, stay with us for the next 90 minutes. And, you will be reaffirmed in the Sony name. And honestly, I have to tell you, after the press conference, I really had a lot of my faith and all restored in Sony. I think that they have a lot of good things to come. I was impressed with their press conference overall. I thought they did a great job with Uncharted 3, Resistance 3, their big titles. They started off with them with a big bang. The Vita actually impresses me a lot more now that I've seen it in action. They've got good titles coming for it. They are, at least implementing the move in some other games. And honestly, overall, I thought of all three press conferences, Sony had the best one. They had the most to lose, the most to prove to everybody, and I think they came out and did a very good job of letting people know that Sony was still there, and it was there to stay. So, good job, Sony. I was impressed, and I'm looking forward to the great games they've got coming out, and we'll see what goes from there. But when we come back with our last part, I will talk about probably the most anticipated press conference of all of E3, which of course was Nintendo's, because of their next console that they were slated to reveal. They did just that, and what ensued was quite interesting. So when we come back, I will talk about Nintendo's press conference and wrap up my recap of E3 2011.